Hi everyone, we're gonna try this for the 15th time. Um, my internet decided to go bust in the spot I was sitting, so I'm trying to find a good signal. And there you are. Kelly can come right up on. She's coming. Hi, Lori. Hi, Nathan. How are you?
Okay. Hi. Hi.
Hello. Welcome, Kelly, to
Thank
Priestess
you.
House Presents. This is our 4th time. And thank you for your patience, Kelly. Thank you for everybody else's patience. We learned a couple things to fill you in. When you want to have a guest on your Facebook Lives, you can only bring them on through an iPad or an iPhone. I'm not sure. Are you on an Android by any chance, Kelly, or do you have an iPhone?
I have an iPhone.
Okay, so we know for sure it works on iPhones and iPads. We don't know if it works on Android, but it doesn't work on laptops or desktops. So if you want to use this feature, it will not work. I know David's laughing, soon to be the 16th time. So I'm going to let the astrologer. So I consider myself an astrologist as well, but I'm more of an aficionado than I am a formal astrologist, and I tend my my abilities as an astrologist is more energy frequencies than actually explaining to people what it means to be Mercury in retrograde. So I'm going to let Kelly take on over here and talk a little bit about what it means to be Mercury in retrograde in Cancer. In your opinion, everybody interprets the messages of the cosmos a little different. So
Right.
take
Well,
on over, Kelly.
and you and we kind of messaged about this. I take the same approach. I take the approach that the planetary placements are energies. And I especially take that stance in a natal chart reading. So that, you have energies like you and I were just talking about, your Virgo rising, and so Mercury retrograde affects you more, right?
Yes.
And the rising sign is really the gateway of your chart, in my view. So it's the filter through which everything else is pushed, right? So when you've got a Mercury ruled ascendant, then you've got, everything pushing through that ascendant, and now it's turned backwards. So yay, fun.
Yep. It's 3 times a year.
Yeah. Yes. And yeah, and depending on where your Mercury is in your chart, that can indicate even more impact of Mercury retrograde on you if Mercury is a prominent placement, even beyond being the rising sign. So, when we're talking about retrograde in Cancer, I always do sentences. So Mercury is communication, information gathering, dissemination of information, how you think, how you process. And Cancer is feelings, all about emotion and intuition and nurturing. And Cancer is a personal sign as opposed to a social and a universal sign. And so Cancer is me. Social signs are me and you. Universal signs are us as a collective. But Cancer is all about what I am feeling. So there's a lot of focus on communicating what I am feeling and processing what I am feeling. And then you throw the retrograde in there. Woo, woo, woo. It gets dicey, because it gets jumbled up. So, yeah.
It's so if you are new to astrology, your sun sign is a big part of who you are, but it's your ascendant placement. Which, if you can remind me, the ascendant is a star, right? It's a placement of a particular star when you were born.
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
See,
It's the sign that was on the horizon when you were born.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so Kelly is Cancer ascendant, so that means her life this time around is ruled by the moon. And as we said, Virgo rising, Virgo is ruled by Mercury, and so is Gemini. And am I missing any others? No, I think
Nope,
that's it.
Yeah.
So if you are a Gemini rising, not sun, So it doesn't have to do with your birthday. It's the time of birth and where you were born. And it usually shifts every 2 to 3 hours. And what's interesting is I was 4 minutes from being Leo rising. So it shifts every 2.5 hours though, depending on where you're at. Some people it's 4 hours, some people it's 1 hour. It depends on where in the globe you were born. But your perspective, which is all of life, truly depends on your perspective and whether you believe in astrology or not. And so I had to triple check. I was born at 10:32 p.m. on December 19th, 1985, and had to triple check that because the astrologer that was helping me one time, they go, "Are you sure you're 10:32 p.m.? Is it you were almost Leo rising?" And Leo is ruled by the sun. So you're going to have different effects with your, on your life path. Like you said, it's sort of that portal of energy there, kind of your origin. And I think a lot of us, I think as I grow into adulthood, my sun sign becomes more important, but my Virgo rising has always been with me. And my ex-husband is a Pisces. Like I even married according to my rising, not my sun.
Right.
So I did. Yeah, I married, the Virgo is the priestess, and I married the Piscean mystic. I mean, it's like, it was spot on. So if any of you think, when you're interested in exploring your ascendant, your sun sign, and your moon, these are the 3 placements that are, and Kelly is a professional astrologist. I am somebody that uses astrology in my work in helping people to transmute shadows and work with their ancestors and things. But and I work with other astrologers to look at what's coming in the cosmos for your karmic patterns, that your horoscopes, technically, that people call it. But I'm not a formal astrologist. So if you're looking, do you Kelly, read charts and go over in detail someone's birth charts and then help give them advice on where they're headed?
I do.
Okay, so hit Kelly up.
Yes.
If you want a formal astrology reading. And this is a good time to segue. So Kelly is an intuitive guide. She's a professional. Fascinated to hear how this manifests in your healing gifts, because there's some people that do energy ley lines. There's some people that work with sacred geometry. There's some people, I also consider myself an energy mapper, but I think it's more of the psyche and working with, which is very mercurial, right? My rising, it's very mercurial. And so I have a feeling with your Cancer rising, it might be more mothering. So I'd love to hear. And the last thing, so astrologer, intuitive guide, and she helps people make great breakthroughs with these tools that we talk about: astrology, intuition, and energy mapping. So tell us all about this. Like, how does energy mapping, intuitive guiding manifest out of your being, Kelly? I'm curious, your individual gifts.
So I have known obviously for a long time that I was intuitive, and it shut off for a while because I got scared of it, as we do, when you're little and you don't understand. And my gateway kind of back into reconnecting with my intuition was astrology. And so I've been studying astrology for about 25 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And I'm mostly self-taught with some, now formal training, and I continue to work on that. But the way that I approach astrology is through energy. It's all, like I said, it's all energy in your chart. You have these autopilots. Some of them you have to fight a little harder than others. Some of them work great for you. Some of them are obstacles. Some of them are challenges. They're all, but it's all energy that's in your chart, right? So when I'm looking at a chart, I use my intuition in addition to translating the mathematical patterns, right? And let that guide some of the advice or some of the guidance that I would give in regard to the chart. So the first thing we do is we diagram the soul. I call it a chart. A natal chart reading is really a diagram of your soul. It really is. And when we look at that and then we say, okay, where are these energies that you can use? The next step is, okay, how am I being efficient or inefficient in my energy usage in my own life. And that's where the energy mapping comes in, because as you and I know, you can spend a lot of time and energy resisting your shadow, right? And doing, so when you do shadow work and you bring all that up to the surface and integrate it into your being, you don't have to put so much energy into resisting. So, when I talk about energy mapping, what I'm talking about is let's draw a map. Let's draw a diagram of where you are allocating your energy consciously and unconsciously. And let's map out how we're going to reallocate it so it's a better use of your emotional, physical, spiritual, universal energy.
Would you define shadow work to you?
Yeah.
What it means to do shadow work? I have a good definition but it's do you want to take a stab at it?
Okay, I'll give it a whirl. I mean, what I think shadow work is integrating the parts of you that you deny, the parts of you that you refuse to acknowledge, the parts of you that are scary and unattractive or fearful or fearsome or anything that we really don't want to be present to is what I consider to be the shadow. And so integrating that stuff, accepting it, allowing it to be present, allowing yourself to be present to that is what I call shadow work.
So where on your chart would you, in the houses and or the planets, would you find some illuminating information on someone's personal shadow?
The first thing I'd look at is Pluto.
Pluto, okay. I've had experience with Chiron helping me.
Okay.
And the Chiron placement, but Pluto, and mine's in the third house. I haven't explored it a whole lot, but Pluto is the planet of transformation, so that makes a lot of sense to look there. And
and Pluto is about truth. It's about the truth. There's a compulsion about being present to things that make people uncomfortable. So when you're thinking about Pluto, that's a way to look at it. Where in your chart, where in your life are you compulsive about being present to things that are uncomfortable, and how do you bring that forth in the world? And for you, the third house is communication. And it's communication in a small community. Like here we are, me and you in our small community. So there's, that's where I look when I'm looking at where people can't help but be truthful.
So my other questions. So let's get into, when did you decide to come into the light with these healing gifts of yours? And what was your story behind that? Just a brief, even if it takes 5 minutes, 10 minutes. It's not a 15-second elevator pitch here. I don't do well with 15 seconds. Tell us, 5-minute story, how did you
I will tell you a 5-minute story. So when I was really young, I had a clairaudient experience, which is where clairaudience is the extrasensory perception of being able to hear, whether you hear voices or whether you hear messages or whatever it is. Anyway, I had something like that, and it scared me. And it scared me enough to shut everything off. And when I was in my 20s is when I started to look into astrology and get interested in astrology. And I thought, this is kind of safe. This feels okay. It's not too scary. I'm not accessing everything right away. It's all, it should be okay. And so that was kind of the segue into starting to say, okay, what is the point of astrology if I'm not going to be able to use the information? How can I use this to guide myself? How can I use this to heal? How can I use this to grow, evolve, all of that? And that led into allowing myself to acknowledge the psychic abilities that I have, the intuitive abilities that I have. and being present to those and giving them credence and credibility, which was a big issue for me for a long time. And then I started in 2 or 3 years ago doing the work that you and I have done, Carolyn Elliott's work with the shadow and all of that stuff, and shadow integration. And then, of course, that was a whole rabbit hole, as you know, that we get into.
The rabbit hole and it never ends.
Right. And it just, so working with all of that, it's actually at the beginning of the year, I really did start to think about how was I going to bring this stuff forth into the world, and not be selfish about it. I have all of this information. I spend a lot of time studying and reading and using and working with it. And it doesn't seem appropriate to keep it to myself. And then with the quarantine, that all came about, and I work in real estate and commercial retail real estate. That all kind of shut down immediately. And I thought, this is a good time. This is a good time to formulate this, figure out how I'm going to present it, and come out of the closet. So that's really, I a lot of people I know knew this about me. But there are even people like my sister-in-law was like, I had no idea you knew this much about all of this. So, it really was a true, okay, world, people, public, universe, this is who I am. I am saying this, I am declaring it, and I am being this.
Mm-hmm. So we have established that me and Kelly were closeted astrologers. L'astrologia è così interessante. Grazie, Davide. You take piano? You must have hit the Italian translation. So, yeah, the thing with my family is when I ended up, so how I started getting into astrology was I met a man who like blew me away. And I couldn't get him out of my brain because I'm ruled by Mercury. I was in meetings and like his face would come up every 10 seconds and I was like, what the hell is this? Who is this dude? He was really a special person, but not enough to be unreal in my brain. So I finally on here and I thought astrology was bunk. I thought it was just fun. I never said it's full of crap, but I just treated it as something fun. And so I finally did one of those compatibility calculator things and romance, and I got 99% with him. And there was something that washed over my being and my soul that said, I'm not crazy. I am not crazy. We soulmates. And I was so it started out with, of course, a dude. It started out with romance because this is my entire life. Like everything I get inspired through falling in love and everything. And I really am someone of Venus. it just is beauty, romance, passion, and I feel like we just that is compassion, is to be in commune with your passion. And a lot of people think compassion is passive. It's actually very, very active. And it's tantric. It's the emergence of an alchemical of the feminine masculine forces. And that's really how astrology initiated me. And from then on, I started getting big into it. And I didn't even look at my own birth chart. I just started studying things from signs. Like the Piscean is the mystical side, and Sagittarius is the philosophical, truth seeker sign, which is my sun sign. And for me, I love working with astrology in an archetypal zodiacal way. I think that's sort of my niche in astrology instead of really getting into specifics. That does the conjuncts and the trines, and I people that these are universal energies that we all have, whether or not you are a believer in astrology. I think we all admit that there's philosophy and there's truth in this world, and we all know that mysticism exists, and we can. So I try to be, again, a mercurial translator between, because I use the cosmos as a great messengers for me, and but so thank you for sharing your story there. And I thought what's really important is, oh, grazie, Davide. And David Bodnar, I don't think it's an Italian name. You're being charming. Um, so tell us about your offerings, okay? Because I'm all about, I want to bring other women and men on here as a platform. Share with us what you are selling. Like we are at a farmer's market. What's at the table? What are your offerings?
Right. So I do natal chart readings, which we've talked about a little bit. And the thing that I like to do with a natal chart reading is I like to do it, and it is such a wealth of information, and it is really, it can be overwhelming because it really is, like I said, a diagram of your soul. It is everything about your inner workings. So I do offer, after the natal chart readings, some follow-up consultations, because then people can take different things that they learn in their readings, and we can work further with those energies to determine how best to kind of manifest what you want from that area, that energy, those different houses of your chart, the areas of experience that you have in your chart. And the way that I approach all of that stuff is really from an evolutionary perspective. So, you know, you can look at your diagram of your soul, you can see how you work, and then if that's all you want, that's all you have to take. But if you really are interested in information to evolve and grow in this lifetime, let's work on it. Let's follow it up. Let's do some, you know, let's do some additional poking around, which I realize is a big,
everybody.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
It's
tell
a big,
your favorite line.
I just
posting over again on Facebook.
Heal your fucking self.
Heal your fucking self.
Yes.
It's your responsibility.
It is. And, you know, what I realize is, you know, it can sound very bossy. And, you know, that's okay. I'm okay with that. But there really is, you know, at the core of that is take what you know and use it to grow, evolve, be a better presence in the world, and be open to helping other people heal. I mean, heal your fucking self so we can all fucking heal, right? So when I'm working, I use that, heal yourself, heal your fucking self, with astrology. I use it with intuitive guidance. That's the whole purpose of energy mapping, is to take all of that energy that you're putting into managing the unhealed parts of yourself and healing, so you can put that energy into growing and evolving and increasing your vibration on the earth with others. You know, if I vibrate higher, I said this and a friend of mine laughed, if I vibrate higher, we all vibrate higher. You know, but it's the truth.
And Kelly, you're really, really down to earth. I like your style of astrology, and
Thank you.
Are she's a really cosmic but down to earth astrologist and friend and witch and healer herself. And she also lives in Michigan. So we didn't even know that for months. We didn't know.
I know.
That. So we're excited about that. We're in each other's areas, so close by.
Right.
And we met on Facebook through groups. And but what's really nice is I like to remind myself, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, that the earth is as much part of the cosmos as I think often we think astrology is separate from earth cycles. You are an astrologist if you are in communion with the earth cycles.
Oh, sure.
I feel like there's separation there, and I'm like, it's not. We're all in the cosmos. We're on a planet. Heads up, guys. We live on a planet. You know?
Right.
So I identify more as identify with more being in commune with the cycles of everything, not just earth, but the earth is part of that all.
Right.
And well, the earth is contingent on where the sun is. Her cycles are contingent on that. So I sometimes have to remind myself that. And so my other question
Yeah, I
is,
can't look at your questions because I'm on the phone and my mess, so I can't see. You just have to do it. You're just
that's
gonna
okay.
have to remind me.
So I wanted to talk a little bit about unity consciousness and mental health, because I I think this is going to become something really important with my work, and I wanted to normalize spiritual awakenings, and they tend to
Yes.
be at my mental health diagnoses like bipolar disorder, borderline personality disorder, manic depression, bipolar 2, 1, triple A, double doo-doo BB. I don't know what it
Right.
is. Let's all these disassociative, autism, because the muggles of the world, which is what the mainstream culture wants to tell us, is that you're crazy and that we're not people of, we're only material beings. We're not spiritual beings, or if we are, it's just that church that you go to on Sundays, or maybe, my grandma prayed for me, but I'm not really into it, etc., etc. And one of my big missions is to sit here and say, yo, we are spiritual beings and this is normal. We are alchemists. A
Right.
bipolar is someone coming in, tapping into their alchemy and trying to integrate these dual forces. And so I wanted to just talk about that, because you and I are, we are down to earth healers here and astrologers. And I took a lot of time in my life before I wanted to publicly say, but I feel really powerful that we really need to hold this ground. This is this We're not crazy. Schizophrenics are not crazy. They are having spiritual encounters. And this is normal. Human beings have these abilities. And not just one person locked up in a monastery or a priest.
Right.
It's what we are. We are creative, co-creative beings.
Right.
So I just wanted to hear your thoughts on that, because I think this is really important as part of the new paradigm in unity consciousness, that we start to bring awareness and normalize that these are not diagnoses. These are true, profound spiritual soul awakenings. And just
Yes.
some, if you have thoughts on that.
I use a lot of different things. Astrology is one context of knowledge that I use, and I work with
Mm-hmm.
it a lot. And it is something that that I've studied enough that I feel comfortable speaking that language at the outset when I start to work with somebody. But there are also a lot of different other things that inform what I call my knowledge space. And a lot of it's very spiritual, but a lot of it's also neurochemistry. It's trauma work, it's somatic experiencing therapy, it's alternative healing modalities, it's plant medicine, it's planetary magic, it's, root work, it's tarot, all kinds of stuff that I throw into
Mm-hmm.
the pot, because there's so much to be able to work with, pull bits and pieces from it so that people can integrate themselves, integrate their beings, so that they're able to function the way that is the most effective and the most efficient for me. And,
Mm-hmm.
that bipolar, schizophrenia, manic depressive, OCD, a lot of that comes from trauma. It's unhealed trauma, So you're having a neurochemical physical experience of a trauma that you have, that you've been through. And, that's going to manifest in your physical body, but it's also going to manifest in your spirit, and it's going to fragment your spirit. So for
Yes.
me, when people are having episodes of, having a schizophrenic episode, or having a panic attack, or, having an episode of OCD or
Mm-hmm.
something like that, it's not just the physical neurochemical experience, it is the spiritual experience of not being able to connect with themselves and with the larger collective.
Yes. Yes. It's an ache.
Yeah.
It's an ache. It's an ache for help, but it's also, when I use the word ache, it's not, I'm kind of trying to get out from this profound suffering that I inherited as an Italian Catholic. But and I imagine you may be Irish Catholic with your beautiful red hair. Although there's lots of Italians that
Yeah.
are redheads. I don't know if people know that up north. And
Yeah.
it's one of my big things. I had something happen 2 weeks ago that it was in my heart. Said, I think on my show I want to talk with everybody that comes on and talk about normalizing mental health. I don't even think it's mental health. It's just, it's called that. And I have a very different interpretation of it being more spirit wounds and soul wounds, and that I've been able on my healing journey. The only way that I was able to catapult a healing journey is a work in progress. It's always it's a journey. It never ends. So you don't want to be like, well, I healed it and I'm done now. I mean,
No, that's not how
that's
that
not how it works.
works.
So, but I've catapulted my healing when I discovered astroherbalism and I got into using plant medicine and I got into astrology, and I'm convinced I was never ever going to really tap into the roots of the roots of the wounds for myself without getting into a more animal spiritualist way of interpreting these dis-eases as an out of alignment with your true being, out of wholeness with your true being. And I couldn't believe how extraordinary once I found it and tapped into it, how the portal opened for me. And a lot of the pharmaceutical medication and going into psych wards and the way that mainstream culture wants to, it's symptomatic. They just want to cover up the symptoms, and it never really heals anything. It just gives you the ability to exist somewhat without shaking up the status quo. And truly, the work that I believe me and Kelly do, and as part of my show, is to invite people here that are really doing this work that is I don't want to say countercultural and rebellious, but just not, it's more of a spiritualist understanding of here. We don't want to cover up your symptoms. We want to get down to that root, to the truth, as you spoke of with Pluto. We want to get to that truth and reintegrate that into your being. And it doesn't help that our culture doesn't tend to value these types of healing modalities, and insurance companies don't cover it. And so that's part of why I'm on Facebook Lives and talking about it very openly, because it's real, it exists, and it helps people. And and I'm just beginning. I mean, I hope down the road I can get actually a formal certification in astroherbalism. I just started doing it though to heal myself and working with plant medicine and the cosmos at the same time, and it helps heal the soul. And I really think we're coming in, I call this the Renaissance of the Soul and the Technical Age is kind of my title for what we are doing right now as well. Because we have to come into this technical age and utilizing these tools, which are new, I think probably in the evolution of history. I mean, I can't speak for all humanity, but this is a pretty new thing, all this technology.
Yeah.
So,
well, the availability of it, the availability of the technology.
Yes.
I mean, for a long time, all of this was very separate. It was, here we are in the mainstream and we do these things, and those are the only things that we do. And if you do other shit, you're weird. Yeah. And now people are like, I'll take whatever. Plant medicine works, I will try it. All of that stuff about using medication to treat mental illness. I know from being intuitive that if I need to disconnect from those abilities, all I have to do is have a couple beers, have a couple drinks, and that completely shuts it off. And I would imagine that that's what that medicine does. I've never been on medicine, any kind of medication that treats mental illness, but that it shuts it off. It shuts off your connection so that all you are able to do is function. You don't get to be connected to the universe. It's too overwhelming to a degree. And when people take that medicine, that's all they do is they shut off their connection. I don't want to discount the value of medication to manage mental illness. I'm not not going to do that, because there is value in some of that. But it also cuts off that connection to the spiritual collective.
Which
It's
is
just part of
really
the
what
function
we're
of it.
speaking out of. And that this
Yeah.
isn't the only way and only approach, but it does, you know, there is always a pro and a con. So the pros and the cons of taking more the spiritual healing path is it's a lot. It's a lot to take. And it's a lifelong journey. So you've basically committed yourself to a lifelong journey. And so, and it can take a long time. Sometimes it can happen quickly. It's a little less able to be predictive, where with the medication, you can typically say, well, 2 or 3 months, it depends on the type of medicine you take, you'll start to normalize it and, you know, in your system, and it becomes more predictable. And really, truly, the universe and the spirit world isn't really predictable. So, you know, there's, I mean, you might be able to do a mix of things. I can't speak that you can't. It's all here. It is just to really say that these things exist. They really help you. And if you feel called to really get to the root of the issue and not just want to function with no judgment on what you decide to do, that is what Kelly and I and a lot of the people I'll have on my show, this is what we specialize in. This is what we feel called to share and with this world. And
and
go ahead.
That you know, healing in this way is, and I have said this as well. I have it on my Facebook bio. Healing is a revolutionary act. It is not an easy path. It's not, it's work. It takes work, and it takes being present, and it takes being present to things that you really have spent probably most of your life trying to not be present to. You know, so that's not, I'm not saying in a dismissive way, you know, just go heal your fucking self. That's not how it works. I am saying heal your fucking self as a revolutionary act, as an act of, as a gift to yourself. Heal yourself as a gift. You know, it's not going to be easy, but it is going to be worth it.
And it also heals the generations.
Yes.
It shifts in your blood, shifts your DNA. So this kind of work shifts the DNA. And epigenetics in scientists. See, I'm not much of a scientist. I'm a spiritualist. But if you're interested in looking more of the science behind it, epigenetics is the field in neuroscience. And there's a guy, Maston Kipp, who does a lot of this work, more in a life coach professional platform, and he kind of brings it down to everyday life. If you are interested in learning more about epigenetics and how they've shown that we can carry up to 17 generations in some studies of trauma in our blood. And so, and we all know that so to say like alcoholism is a genetic disposition, it's because it's in the blood, and you can shift that. You can shift that. And so it's really extraordinary. And this is really what we speak about when you get down to the healing of the roots. And make no mistake, pharmaceutical medicines don't do this, and they don't. And it's all about being truth here. Like this stuff, it will help you function, but it will not break the generational dispositions of trauma that have been passed on. So, you know, we want to bring awareness to that. So it's a matter of, if you're ready to do it, then come on this platform. And, you know, and so, and you're not crazy. You're not crazy at all. And I just want to validate people. You are not crazy. This is very real. And this is what I like to call the Inquisition was for a really long time. And I think we have a great amnesia from it that is not talked about enough, especially in the dogmatic Christian circles. In certain parts of the world, the Inquisition lasted for 800 years. 800 years they were killing people that were teaching and healing at the root level that we are talking about. And gaslighted it. And so also, I think many of us know it's true, but we're so scared to do it. And so me and Kelly are here to tell you we've done a lot. I've worked a lot. Last year was my year. I broke through that shadow, Kelly, of being scared to come out that I was going to be burned at the stake for being a healer at the root cause. I really felt like I was going to get burned. It's true. It really is in our blood. and it can be male or female. And
Yep.
I was able to transmute that last year with Carolyn Elliott's courses. That was my main. I would say if I had to say like what I really got over that hump, and we're here to tell you it is safe.
Right.
It is safe for us to pursue these healing modalities. It's 2020 and it is safe.
Right.
And but yeah, thank you, David. It is very inspiring. And you're looking at two women that have really done some work here and are ready to talk.
Yes.
We got stuff to say.
Right.
So, yeah. But I know that we're here probably going to wrap it up. Is there any last little tips of advice that you would like to share, or if you have anybody that you're currently reading or inspired by that you want to share with our audience, please go ahead.
Let's see. I've at any given time I have half a dozen books going because I can't
I know, right?
You know, and there some of them are very science, some of them are sciencey. They're, you know, science books about neurochemistry or human behavior or things like that. I love Malcolm Gladwell. I love what he has to say about what we think we are versus what we really are. And I read Talking to Strangers most recently, and that was really good because everyone thinks they're such a good read of people. And really, that book, the entire premise of that book is a series of scientific evidence and studies that nobody knows shit when it comes to trying to evaluate people. And you can't. So, I mean, there are things that everybody thinks they can do really well, and that one of them is reading people, and sometimes you just can't.
Yeah.
What else? I'm reading a book called Come As You Are, and it's about sex and the sex drive and how different people have different ways of like how their sex drive works. Some people are, you know, they think of something and then they want to have sex. Some people want to have sex and then they think of sex. So there's a, you know, and it's all like this disconnect and how you kind of get into balance with your partner, especially if they've got a different way to drive them, called How Emotions Are Made. You know, about kind of the background and the neurochemistry and the psychology of emotions. I'm reading a couple books by Stephen Forrest, who is so far my favorite astrologer because he's very down to earth. He's Capricorn sun. So he's like, you know, puts it in and structures it and really writes it. And I love the way that he is so pragmatic because there's a huge element of me that's a very pragmatic and logical, like, okay, all this stuff is great, but how are we going to use it? How are we going to, you know, how are we going to work with this? So those are some of the things that I'm doing and some of the things that I am kind of using to expand my knowledge space.
That's a lot. I've never read any of these individuals' works. I don't know these people, and
right.
I thought I would know who you were. That's why I like to ask. There's a lot of knowledge out there, guys. Knowledge is power, but it's also a choice of ignorance these days. No one can say that we have dogmatic institutions burning books and keeping them from us anymore. It's all in our own fingertips. Go on and search. Go look, and it is safe to do so now. It truly is safe. And with that, like, that's why I keep saying it, like talking to myself, it's safe now. They're not locking our books up and burning them in the College of Alexandria and all these things. And so we and one of our watchers, what did I say? One of our guests, I guess. His name is David Bodnar. I hope I'm saying it right. Emily Nagoski. Do you know Emily Nagoski I don't know. I'll have to look her up, David. Not familiar with her work.
Think that's the Come As You Are. Is that I'd have to look at my.
Oh, okay.
Let me see.
Author. Yeah.
Ooh. Come As You Are is, it's Emily Nagoski. Right.
Perfect. So. Oh, you know, good. Thank you, David.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, again, I'm going to post this up so you guys can watch it. I know it was a long talk, and if you are interested in fast forwarding through certain spots and hitting us up. I'm going to do a little recap, and I will post it on my feed. And again, if you'd like to, love to have you support the show on my Patreon page. It's under Priestess House, and the link is in my profile. And pledges start as low as $3, and then there's $10 and then $25 monthly pledges. And at this stage, it's to help support this and get it off the ground. And it's a grassroots movement, and there is a lot more coming, including my own album. Priestess House is also my DJ name, my band name.
Nice.
So I don't want to go under my name. I decided real name. I'm a DJ. I'm like Marshmallow.
Nice. I like it.
So thank you, Kelly, and
thank
you
you
for your patience. And
yes.
You have a beautiful rest of your day. Okay. Thank
you
everybody
too.
who watched us.
Thanks.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.